And good evening, folks. Hope you all are doing good tonight. I have a guest, and he is from San Antonio. He is an author and commentator for Newsmax and Fox News. Welcome, George.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Did you thaw out okay from last week?
Let me tell you, it on Thursday, I believe, or Wednesday, it was 875. I believe today it hit 80. We're thawed out, let me tell you. My house at one point during the big freeze was 40 degrees, if you can imagine. Outside it was, the worst it got was, I believe it was 14 degrees. My plants are all dead. Luckily, I did not have any broken pipes. I was spared that. I did not have electricity for almost 50 hours. So the only thing that kept me warm was I have a gas-powered fireplace. However, the fireplace is more for looks than it is for warmth. Nevertheless, it helped. And so we made it through. It was really a very, very humbling experience. At one point, I kept expecting, we were sitting here in the dark and in the snow, and I kept expecting Jack Nicholson to come at the door knocking with an axe, but no, that didn't happen. So it was good. It was just a lot of hallucinating.
Yeah, I was on and off, mostly off for about 3 days myself. We had an issue with Magic Valley Electric. They were completely unreliable. I kind of heard that they had a generator explosion or incidents that limited their power output, but in general, they've had reliability issues in the past. But anyways, please introduce yourself to our audience tonight.
All right, my name is George Rodriguez. I blog and I report and I do commentaries on radio. I've got a radio program here in San Antonio, El Conservador. I also have a blog all under the name of George Rodriguez, El Conservador. I also do guest spots on Newsmax and on Fox News, as well as on Telemundo and Univision. And I was an appointee in the Reagan administration, and then again in the first Bush administration. I have been active in Republican politics since Reagan ran in 1979 and won in 1980, and then I went on to win in 81. I have served in various capacities within the Republican Party, as well as I've been a Tea Party president. I believe I was the first Hispanic Tea Party president in the nation. I have been very much, I was supposed to retire, but I ended up doing my radio program and being a commentator, and now I do lots of guest spots and comments, interviews just like this one.
Well, since you were there during the Reagan administration, you are probably familiar with Reaganomics, as it was called then.
Yeah.
And of course, you've been active in policy and politics since then. What do you think about the new, well, it's not really new, this would be the third stimulus package that is being enacted?
You know, we wouldn't need, first of all, we would not need a stimulus package at all if we would allow people to be responsible for their own health and for their own welfare and safety, and we would just let the economy be free. The Reagan economics that you're talking about are also product of the Heritage Foundation, where I interned and worked for a little while as well. And there's nothing like freedom for people, a free economy. And when we talk about a free economy, we're not talking about just free enterprise, but we're talking about the individual being allowed to do whatever work and profitable business they can. Unfortunately, because of the scare tactics, and that's what I will call them, because of the scare tactics, our economy has been limited, if not closed down. Restaurants, theaters, movie theaters. I mean, all sorts of businesses have been limited because of the so-called pandemic. And while I will guarantee that the pandemic, that COVID-19 is dangerous to some people, and that some people might have died from it, or have died from it. It is not, to me, it is not it is not a situation or something that should be used to scare people into shutting down your economy. I believe very, very strongly, Cruz, very, very strongly in my heart, that the liberals, the Democrats, the leftists wanted to shut down the Trump economy that was doing so well, that had allowed for the lowest unemployment of blacks, the lowest unemployment of Hispanics, that had the most robust economy in the world moving along. That they used it to shut us down, to close us down. And not only have they used it to close us down, they've used it to scare us. And unfortunately, the mask has become a symbol of economic enslavement, in my opinion. And those are strong words, I know, but that's how I feel, and that's coming from my heart.
Well, the deed is done. It was done last year, as far as lockups, and then the first stimulus. And then I do tend to agree with you that, and even Pelosi, I believe, admitted it herself, that they did not do a second stimulus, basically to make sure that the economy did not bounce back, did not recover.
That's right. That's right. And this stimulus, let's talk about this stimulus. I mean, this third one that had just gone through. The reality, the fact of the stimulus is what it contains. It contains all sorts of pork, all sorts of useless, yes, that's the word, useless spending. If people wanted, if you want to help someone who is hurting, instead of $1.9 trillion being utilized for pork, just give everybody, take all that money and just give everybody maybe $1 million, and you probably save some of it. I mean, it's incredible. If people would be given the money to and then allowed to utilize it in whichever way they want. It's called freedom, economic freedom. The poverty industry that the Democrats live by, that the liberals live by, that the leftists love to use, the poverty industry would really suffer, because all of a sudden people would have money and opportunity to better themselves with. But unfortunately, you've got this stimulus now that's being used for all sorts of things like public transportation. Give me a break. For school districts that are shut down, for teachers unions that are shutting those school districts down. It's being used for in some cases it's being used to pay for the ridiculous spending of cities and states that have been that don't know how to manage their own economies, their own budgets, should I say, that don't know how to manage their own budgets, that have been overspending for years. Now we're going to bail them out. This stimulus is everything but what it should be.
Yeah, you are correct that a couple of items that I'm aware of, the BART system in San Francisco, they're building I guess a tunnel or some sort of transportation system into San Francisco, and it is ridiculous. They're still in lockdown. The system really isn't needed at this time. There's a new.
We're supposed to keep social distance, yet they want us to use mass transportation.
And even
please explain that to me.
To Canada, that they have set aside several $100 million, and I thought that Canada pretty much locked down anybody coming and going into Canada. So why they're doing that is unknown. I'm sharing a list of items pertaining to individuals and small businesses there. let me just review a little bit, and then you can add your comment to that. This is a stimulus round 3, and this is not the Biden plan, by the way, but it is very similar. It was passed by the House. Yeah, and heading to the Senate under budget reconciliation rules. Can you tell us what that means, reconciliation rules?
The reconciliation rules means that anytime that that one section of the legislature, either the House or the Senate, whenever they propose something, then you've got to send the bill over to the other side. In this case, the House has put together this stimulus plan. Now they're going to send it over to the Senate. The Senate will play with it or will produce their own. And then you have a reconciliation, which means that the two of them come together. Representatives from the House and representatives from the Senate come together to compromise and put together one bill. And in that compromise, then they move forward to vote on it and then to send it to the president. However, I am hoping that in the Senate, since the Senate is controlled by the Democrats by the thinnest of razors, razor thin representation, then I am hoping that a lot of this stimulus proposal by the House will be either done away with or amended in some form or fashion, because it's crazy. Now, again, you know, Nancy Pelosi and Schumer from the Senate are screaming and yelling that we've got to get money out to the people. Well, you know, why don't we do that instead of putting together this pork? But they are such hypocrites. It's not even funny.
And one of the important points about this reconciliation is that they only need 50 votes, or actually 51, to pass. So they can't afford to lose not even one.
That's right.
Democrat. Let's go to some of the comments and see what folks are asking here. Cruz is the bomb, diggity. Oh, okay, thank you, Fred. Claudia, good evening, Cruz. Looking forward for another awesome show. You bet. Oh, heck, here we go. There. Ozzy, how you doing? Hey, Marty. And George, together again. Good evening, peeps. Bert says, Claudia, you are correct, Mr. Rodriguez. I call it a pandemic. Okay. Hey, Sharky. Claudia asks, all they're doing is leaving the country with more debt that will never recover.
Exactly.
It doesn't bode well at all. Fred says the problem with the stimulus is its condition in nature and thus anti-free markets. We need to stop reinflating these bubbles and allow a correction to occur.
That's right.
George, wasn't Volcker a Reagan treasury or... Yeah, Treasury, right? Paul.
Yes. Yes.
Didn't he jack up the?
Oh no, he was Office of Management and Budget.
Okay, didn't they jack up, or didn't he want to jack up the interest rates?
Yes, he did.
And they were back then, if I remember correctly, they were 10 to 15%, maybe higher. I don't remember the exact amount, but doesn't that actually hurt the economy as well?
Oh, it does. It does, because again, during the Trump administration, we've had extremely low interest rates because we had an economy that was growing. We had people working. We had people investing. We had people involved in personal wealth. The complete opposite from what Jimmy Carter, for example, and these guys today are doing. They want the government to be controlling. They want the government to assure outcomes, and that's impossible. That is not reality. That's like trying to stretch a kid and make him 6'6" when he's never going to be 6'6". You know, all you're doing is hurting the kid, or trying to keep the kid short when the kid is growing. I mean, it flies in the face of nature. Freedom is natural. Government control is not natural. And when you play with the interest rates, when you utilize the interest rates to control the economy, you're going to get into big trouble. You're going to get into big trouble. And you know, sadly, the Federal Reserve has historically used interest rates to either put the brake, as they put it, on the economy, or to stimulate the economy. And right now, we're seeing rates begin to creep up again, because a higher rate means uncertainty, means an insecure market, means people are not that willing to lend. If they're going to lend to you, they want to lend to you on at higher interest, so that, you know, they're assured to make money off of it, because they're not making a lot of money off of others. On the other hand, when the economy is good, the interest rate is low, because, you know, they want to lend money. They're making money. They want to lend money, and sadly, these interest rates right now, I think we're going to see them skyrocket. I think we're going to see them skyrocket to heights that will scare us.
Powell is saying it's not going to happen for the next 2 years. He almost promises by saying that they're looking for no more than 2% inflation. However, we know that the inflation number that they use, or the calculations that they use, are bogus. The
Yeah.
actual inflation is much, much higher. But
I don't know if you've noticed. I mean, let's talk about the gas industry right now. The gasoline at the pump right now. The gasoline at the pump right now has substantially gone up, much more than 2%, and that's gone up only in the past 6 weeks since he took over and he shut down the pipeline. And I guarantee that is an indicator of what's going to come down the road.
Funny that you had mentioned a minute ago about stretching a kid to 6 foot. On a funny side note, I forget what university it is, that they are pushing gender equality due to height. That
You're kidding.
they are putting, I guess, not, what do you call it? Little stilettos, or little boots with heights. You choose. They're trying to make everybody equal in this university. So they
Insanity.
Yeah, they believe that
Absolute insanity.
equal height, that everything will be cool. So they're measuring out little step stool shoes.
How does that help equality? I mean, how does that help the person to be? I mean, the problem that we've got is that we've got a lot of insecure and immature people who want the government to make them equal. And that's incredible. I mean, those people don't need the government to help them. What they need is a psychiatrist to help them.
Absolutely. Bert says this bill is not a stimulus bill. It is a bailout of blue cities and states. Yeah, that's true.
Very true.
I believe, Sharky says, I believe it's just another step to socialism by getting people accustomed to living by the government thumb. Yeah, and I'll scroll on that list of items, and you'll notice that universal basic income is basically being introduced with this stimulus. And I'll scroll up here.
You get paid for doing nothing. I mean, imagine that. You're going to get paid for doing nothing. That's outrageous.
Hey, Nadia, how you doing? Fred says interest rates ought to be set by the market. The Fed is manipulating interest rates to postpone the collapse. That's what they've been doing actually all along for years. Interest rates need to be higher, and we need to follow, or rather need to allow the correction to occur. He continues, the Fed can't raise rates. We have checked into the Roach Motel of monetary policy. Well, Hotel California, we have checked in. We might not be able to check out. Let me review a couple of bullet points here on the stimulus. This is the Oprah bullet points. $1,400 for everyone. Everybody gets the $1,400. That's adults, Children, everybody that's on a tax return gets $1,400. And you must have a Social Security or A-10 for the kids, except for non-citizen spouses of military. They'll be getting the $1,400. And funny enough that there is no mention of whether people in prisons will be excluded. So it's possible that they'll be getting $1,400.
Why should I pay somebody in prison? I mean, really, insanity.
Yeah, it's not excluded. It's definitely not in the wording, unless the Senate changes it.
We excuse and reward bad behavior, including prisoners.
And on the I-10, if a parent with citizen children qualify, the children will be getting the stimulus as well. There are no garnishments for the $1,400. That includes everything: child support, student loans, you name it. Nothing that is government sponsored or that government touches is not going to be garnished. There's some, it's kind of vague whether private conventional loans are excluded or not. There will be health insurance assistance, there'll be rental assistance, 15% increase in SNAP benefits extended through August. Child care deduction increase, 50% deduction through August. Everything is through August, by the way. And child tax credit. This is the start of universal basic income for kids. Child tax credits will be refundable tax credits. In other words, there won't be income necessary. And here's the breakdown on what they will get. And I say they because I don't have any kids anymore in the house. And it'll be in advance. This is the UBI.
Now notice that, you know, people are going to be getting money for the kids, but, you know, there is no mention of spouse responsibility, or there's no mention of a married couple and their responsibility. You know, we are again encouraging out of wedlock the breakdown of families and children out of wedlock. That's what we're encouraging, or that's what they're encouraging with this. Because then somebody can make money. It's money making to have a child out of wedlock, or to have a child, period.
Well, it's not, it's a racket actually, because the rules are vague about how a couple can file.
Yeah.
For example, husband A takes half the kids and the wife A takes the other half. They both file as head of household. They both claim earned income tax credit. They both get child tax credit. It's a boondoggle for them. And the law is vague enough that they can get away with it.
It's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. And again, you know, I mean, I don't like to get religious and preachy, but there has to be a morality for a society to exist. And when you undermine the morality, particularly the structure of a family, which is society's basic, which is all society's basic fundamental organization, when you undermine that, then what you're doing is setting up the government to be the family. And that's why these folks never talk about individuals and families, a person, an individual's rights. They talk about communities. They talk about groups, because, you know, they have the structure of a family has been undermined, and they don't care.
I think that I guess it introduces governments, the government teeth that they can look to.
The government becomes your daddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your grandma and your grandpa.
Well, they can divide up the kids and actually get earned income tax credit and child tax credit themselves, as a matter of fact. That's been happening too. There is a tax credit here, an employer tax credit, that employers are not taking advantage of. And I'm kind of like, you might say that I'm wishy-washy, and that, yeah, I'm conservative and see the danger and all this loose money that's going on. But when an employer lays off an employee because he doesn't want to go through the hassle of paperwork, of getting reimbursed from the government. That too, I believe, is wrong. There are avenues for employers to keep their employers working regardless, and they're not taking advantage of it. And what I've heard is that because of the paperwork, it's too much of a hassle for them.
Well, again, you're destroying the whole idea of economic independence. I mean, the worst nightmare for a dictator or a dictatorship are economically independent people. The worst nightmare for dictators are economically independent people. And what I see happening constantly and consistently is that the government today, particularly the Democrats, at state, at local levels, at national levels, definitely, are trying to create economic dependence by people.
Fred says the old left used to call for equality. Now they're calling for equal equity. Sounds like communism to me.
Exactly.
And he goes on to say the government becomes your mommy, your daddy. It's one of the kicks. Well, it's the one that kicks you out and makes you get a job. That's not the government, that's for sure. As far as business, the stimulus that Trump initiated, at least his administration, was directly to the people. There's two thoughts on policy there. I'm not really sure which one is correct. When you give the money to the people, they are going to spend it, except those that don't need it. Those that don't need it are going to invest it. They're going to save it. They're not going to spend it.
Correct.
So really, the poor folks are the ones that are going to end up getting hurt with all this free flowing money, really, in the long run. And the other side of the coin is it should have been targeted to business all along, big business and small business, not to the people, because you want to target certain sectors. What's your thoughts on that?
I believe that poverty is a result of culture. I believe very, very strongly that poverty is a result of culture, and culture is nothing more than people's behavior. And the reason that that poor people spend money, particularly money that they don't have, they spend money because they don't know. It's their culture that they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to handle it, and I mean that's really, really something that the left and liberals and many conservatives, many moderates will never admit, that this is a cultural phenomenon that we're looking at, where people don't know how to handle money. Yet that's, throughout the history of mankind, there have been poor people, and there have been people that don't know how to handle resources. That's all there is to it. There's poverty because they don't know how to handle their resources. They don't know how to behave. They don't know how to handle themselves. I mean, one thing is for a person not to be able to work because of an infirmity, because of age, that they can't work. That's different from people that don't work because they don't want to or they don't know how. That's a big difference. And when you give people money, when you give them money, the result is always going to be that some know how to use it, some know how to save it, and some don't know what to do with it. Some you can give, I mean, how many people have won the lottery and within years they're poor again? How many people? I mean, that's the reality. So giving it to a business, particularly a small, thriving business, makes more sense, because a small business is the result of somebody who is actively moving forward with their economics, with their use of money, and they would use it. Now, if you couple the stimulus, if you couple the money that they get with letting them open up their business, letting them be free again, not putting restrictions on it, and I guarantee our economy would take off again, and there would be jobs for those who want jobs. I mean, the worst nightmare for Democrats are job opportunities. I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, you had, all you have to do is just look at examples like George Parr in South Texas, his history, as well as Boss Tweed in New York in the 1860s. I mean, these guys were powerful because they controlled the economy and they controlled the jobs that they gave to people. That's why they were powerful. And you've got the same repeat, only you've got it at the national level, and you've got it, you still have it even locally. I mean, there's, counties in South Texas that are still controlled the same way by political bosses. They're a little bit smarter, they're a little bit more hidden, but they're still there. And giving money away to individuals just for the heck of it, or because they need it, and expecting individuals to respond like responsible business people. That's crazy. That's like putting me in the starting lineup of the Spurs and expecting me to play, just like all the 20-year-olds that are all the 25-year-olds who are 6'8". It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I don't have that capability.
Well, part of the problem is government itself. Those supposed studied and degreed individuals really sometimes don't know what they're doing in government. I mean, they make the rules as they go along. The latest PPP iteration is the latest example. The Payment Protection Program again for small businesses. They wanted to target the gig workers, your small contractors, and they came out with guidelines of net income to determine and calculate how much funds they're going to get. And then in the middle of the game, they changed the rules actually for the better. Instead of net income, they're going to use gross income, which means better funding for the small business. But then they said, it only applies going forward. So those hundreds of thousands of small businesses that applied and got funding cannot go back and recalculate their loans and funding. They've missed out. They just totally missed out. It really is pissing off people that they're in the middle of the game. They changed the rules and they can't play anymore.
Again, it's because the majority of these people that we have in control at this point at the national level are folks that have no knowledge of real economics. They have no knowledge of economics, the economics of freedom and liberty. They want to help people, and government can't help people. People are themselves, by design of God, different. And you're going to be able to. I mean, the best you can do is give them opportunities, turn them loose, and let them produce. And unfortunately, that is not what these people believe in. These people somehow believe that they think of themselves as God, and they are going to make things right for everyone. Well, it's impossible. You can't make things right for everyone. I'm reading down here where Fred Eric Chiramilla is asking about, could you speak about the growing consumer debt problem? Lots of young people, millennials, lots of 30-somethings, 20-somethings that I know, expect to live the same way that their parents live. They expect to be successful. They expect to have the same things that their parents have. They do not understand that you start out in economics one rung at a time and you move up. They want it all and they want it now. And the way that they do it is they get themselves in debt. The other issue is not only is it debt from credit cards, from buying things that they can't afford, but it's also debt from schools, for example, school debt, for getting educations that they don't need, they can't use. I mean, so many of these people, instead of getting a liberal arts education and getting in debt for it, they should go out and become plumbers. I mean, plumbers make great money right now, particularly here in San Antonio. Electricians, but somehow being a blue collar worker, while it is glorified by Marxism, the people, the workers, they don't really believe that. They're all elitist. They're all arrogant elitists, quiche eating elitists. And they don't believe that a person should get their hands dirty. I got news for you. You know, when a person doesn't produce something that they can get a good salary for, you know, then they're not going to eat. They're going to be these socialist types that want universal pay, and you know, they're people are getting themselves in debt, either directly, credit cards, or indirectly by supporting government that puts them in debt, trillions of dollars in debt, because they want it all and they want it now, because they're ignorant, because they're selfish, and because they're immature.
We are a consumer-driven economy. We've actually always been, except at the, I guess the problem may have started when we went off the gold standard. At least that's what everything is pointing towards. Because in the 50s, we were consumers, but there wasn't any credit card debt. There wasn't any credit card companies. You saved and you went out and you bought your car. You went out and you bought your television. One person worked and was able
to move up a point at a time. But see, this, and I think a lot of it has to do with this mentality of affirmative action, where, you know, you just are promoted because of the fact. This everybody gets an award mentality. You know, you advance one step at a time. You advance one step at a time. You know, that doesn't mean that you get it all and you get it all today. However, that's not a concept that is taught in schools or promoted by the media. The other problem, not only are we consumers, are we a consumer-driven economy, we are an entertainment-driven society now, which means that it's more important to us to be entertained than to produce. I mean, it's more fun to watch Netflix than to be working. I understand that. But you've got to work to produce something. You got to work to produce these Netflix, and everybody wants to be an arts major. Well, I'm sorry. Most people, you know, don't have a talent to be arts majors. And so what are they going to do? Well, they're going to turn around and they're going to demand universal payment, universal salaries. It's crazy. It's crazy. We need to get back to the basics of society. And I'm not sure how we're going to do it, because given the education system that doesn't teach it, but we need to get back to teaching people that they need to produce for themselves. There's nothing wrong with working. You may not like it, but that's the way life is. Life is tough. Life, it's you know, make it by the sweat of your brow. But somehow that is, you know, that's too harsh. That's maybe hate speech. An economy cannot exist with only consumers and only people who want to be entertained.
I think all the guests that I've had on and educators that I've talked to all agree that we need to have home economics taught in the high school.
And at home.
Yeah, absolutely. But when I ask, well, why hasn't that been implemented? Why isn't that a school board issue? I get told, well, no, it's decided at TEA. It's decided by the state.
Yeah.
Does that sound right? I mean, I thought
It's crazy. No, it shouldn't be. And again, because the people that are at TEA at the state level or at the Department of Education at the federal level are bureaucrats as well as elitists. These are professional educators who are part of the education industry. And the only thing that the education industry cares about is about how to grow the education industry from their perspective. Just like any industry, just like any business, they want to grow it. And so what's the best way to grow it? Best way to grow is to create more students for longer periods. That's why we got people going to school to be arts majors, 5-6 years. I think that's crazy. I met a kid the other day, an adult person, 30 years old, who's very proud of their master's degree in arts education. Liberal beyond belief, because the world owes them something, because they can't make it on whatever salary they're. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but what does a liberal arts major bring to me personally? Can they fix my? I have a leaking valve in one of my bathrooms. Can they come over and fix that? But see, again, it's their self-centered expectations of the economy that are faulty, rather than understanding that
they can do. You want fries with that?
Right.
And they may be earning $15 an hour pretty soon.
Heaven forbid that you would suggest that they, having a master's degree, would work making burgers. Heaven forbid.
Yeah.
Well, how elitist is that? I mean, when I was in high school and in college, I worked at a Church's Fried Chicken at one point. I worked at the zoo feeding fish at one point. I worked at a construction company at another point, or a construction site at another point. That's what you do when you're when you're starting out. And I drove an old car. I didn't have a brand new one. But these things are not taught in the home, particularly because of the poverty industry. Now, that's another industry. You got the education industry, you got the poverty industry. The poverty industry out there promoting people's suffering and dictating that they've got to be helped. And so how do they help them? Well, they help them with programs. They help them with more money. They help them everything except with the culture, with the understanding that mommy and daddy need to teach the kids to sit quietly in school and listen and learn, instead of acting like, they're thugs. Am I coming across too strong?
No. Claudia says the problem is that people like to live beyond their means. Yeah, that's true. Very true. Also, the young people want to earn $15 an hour without proving they deserve it. Very true. Any entry-level job should be a market. It should be a free market. If you're worth $15, you're going to get paid $15.
Yeah.
Fred says, I like George. Okay.
I would like to make $100 a month, an hour.
A lot of them rather be YouTubers than actually study or work.
Yep, that's true.
Fun. Fred says, homeschooling. Got to start them young. I'm reading my 7 and 5-year-old Barry Goldwater's Conscious Conservative at bedtime right now.
Good.
No more economics than any liberal in the university. Supply and demand.
That's right.
Hey, that's good. Claudia says, I have a 6-year-old grandbaby and he wanted to be like Ryan from YouTube that earned 20 million plus by uploading videos by commenting on toys. Really? Okay. No more YouTube for him, and started to teach him about savings and earning money. Hey, Claudia, is that the guy that digitized or some sort of painting or cartoon? I don't know if you heard about this, George. I think there's a guy out there, and I think it's Ryan, that he's an artist. He did a drawing. He's selling tokenized, prorated tokens of his drawing. So if you buy a token of this art, you're a part owner of this art. I'm not sure.
No, I haven't heard of him.
Okay, well, he's already made over $2 million.
Wow.
He sold all the tokens for his painting. That's quick money. That's great, good for him, but it's
right.
totally worthless to everybody else.
I mean, imagine, somebody else trying to do that and then getting frustrated because it doesn't have the same impact. Well, then find something else to do.
And speaking of tokenized, what do you think about Bitcoin? Do you think it's really a store of value, as the Bitcoin crowd is saying, or do you believe?
I'm fascinated by it because, I mean, it's something, again, that came out of Europe, and it follows closely from the euro, which all of Europe converted to. I think Bitcoin is an idea that some of the Europeans would like to convert the whole world to, so that we would all use. But again, that would tie all of our economies together. And again, that's impossible. I mean, imagine somebody in Zimbabwe who has runaway inflation trying to put the same value on a Bitcoin that you would have in Texas. I'm not sure that it's real. I'm not sure that's realistic. I see a lot of pitfalls with it, but I think it might work with some countries. I think it might work with some communities, but I don't see it working with it.
There is a digital dollar that's being contemplated. China has already started.
Yeah, well, China
recognizing their yuan, so that they can exchange across borders. You buy yuans and you sell yuan tokens, and you buy goods and services from them in yuan. So I do see that there is a trend heading that way. And with any tokenized or digital currency, it's very traceable. That's the nature of the token. You need the blockchain to carry that token from one person to the other. And by its very nature, blockchain has to be totally transparent. It's got to be totally public, so that there's no funny business happening with that token. They'll use, for example, that criminals are using Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency to conduct criminal enterprise, but there's more money laundering with actual fiat money going on than there is with Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency, because criminals have found out that the blockchain is public. Now, nobody knows who it is that's doing the transaction, but it's so easy to find out. So they realize, hey, we can't do criminal enterprise because it's very traceable.
I'm just very, very, very cautious about any currency or any economic activity that is globalized and that can be traceable and can be, because I guarantee that the criminal element will always find a way to counterfeit it or to utilize it. The second thing is, again, I worry about the value, because how the value will be between, how it will be evaluated between nations. Because once it gets going, all the nations are going to want to get on board, particularly the poor ones who would want to utilize it so that way they could claim, so that they could get paid by the stronger nations, by the more advanced nations. And the transfer of wealth, it's not going to be equitable. It's not going to be. It's not going to be the same. So I worry about it. I mean, I think it's very trendy. I think it's very sexy. but at one point, so was the European Union.
Right, right. And really, in my opinion, it does not have any store of value. The only thing that it has is the faith of the next person that buys a coin to keep the value up. Um, one of these days, they're going to find out that you can't do anything with it, and the fad will pass. If, even if Musk even buys more tokens or more coin, he really pushed that. And of course, I don't know if you noticed that Bitcoin came from a high of 60,000 back down to around 49,000, and it went back up a little bit. So it's very volatile. Fred says we need to fight against digital money, that this is just an excuse for government to keep track of every single financial exchange we make. Yeah, and the ability to tax that transaction is there, very, very much so. People commit fraud and sell drugs with food stamps.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
They'll use Bitcoin for the same thing.
I don't know if you remember, George. I think it was an Obama time frame. Somebody posted a Snap balance from a Circle K purchase. They had over $7,000 balance in their Snap card down here, and they posted it on Facebook.
Incredible.
Fred says, "Go."
It wouldn't be so bad if we prosecuted these people. We found them and prosecuted them. But 9 times out of 10, so many things have become decriminalized that we hear, whether it's federal DAs, federal district attorneys, or local district attorneys saying, the crime isn't strong enough for us to, isn't great enough for us to, for us to prosecute them, to waste our time prosecuting them. It's crazy. People do something wrong, they need to be prosecuted.
Well, it's like election fraud. The same thing. It wasn't big enough to prosecute. They didn't really care about it. Nobody really wanted to take the time to prosecute.
Right.
It straightened some of those laws, and they made it a felony. So hopefully they will use that. But yeah, same thing applies. Speaking about prosecuting, do you see any criminal intent or any criminalization of what happened last week with our grid? Is there anybody criminally?
I don't know about criminal. I don't know, but definitely mismanagement. And there might be some criminality in there in the middle of it. Although the issue of the people that froze to death, there were 21 people that froze to death here in San Antonio, for example. That needs to be, somebody needs to be held responsible for that. And I guess that could be raised to criminality. But the situation that we've got is that we've got to see how we can diversify the grid, how we can keep it diverse. I mean, what fascinates me is how the left and Democrats and liberals always talk about diversity, that it's great, except when it comes to government control of something. They want government control of the grid, and they want the grid to depend on green energy. Well, that's crazy. That's absolutely outrageous. We need independent grids, and we need diversified grids. We need grids that, if they're going to use wind, fine and dandy, but we should also utilize gas, oil. We should even use nuclear energy. We should use any and all types of energy production to keep it. Unfortunately, the left and the fake news are very, very active and successful in condemning anything and everything that's not green. And that's the problem that we've got. We've gotten ourselves into a situation where we're creating a crisis for the future of energy. And I think that's really ultimately that's ultimately the goal of these radical green people, is to cripple the American economy anyway. And Texas, big target on Texas because we are. So what we need more diversity in our energy resources, in our energy sources, not to depend only on green, renewable, whatever that is.
Maybe one of these days, we're really the only green energy that is clean is nuclear power, but they're against that too.
Gosh, yes. Are you kidding?
And the rule of thumb when wind and solar started, as far as comparing it or supplementing fossil fuel, is for every watt of green energy that's going to be introduced, you need to have a watt of reliable
There you go.
fuel energy, because reliable wind turbines and solars are totally unreliable during.
We saw that. We as much as spin as the major media, including the New York Times, including CNN, have tried to do for the Texas grid disaster. The fact of the matter is that we were depending too much on green energy, and those windmills froze. B, we have been going headlong in the direction of green, renewable energy, while at the same time we've been abolishing, shutting down the reliable energy, the fracking, the gas, the oil. We've been shutting it down. So all of that combined, they say, well, it's complicated. It's not complicated. All you just have to do is follow the dominoes. The dominoes started with the windmills. They didn't work, and once
it's very hypocritical of AOC when she compares. Look at our New York system. Look at our New York green energy. It's working. We know how to do it.
She's an idiot.
Learn. Well, when you go take a look at the New York, and I forget the name of their ERCOT version, you'll notice that wind is less than 2%. Why? They know that the darn things don't work during the winter. So they know not to rely on wind energy. So she's full of it when she says, look at our energy. Is great. Again, we know how to do it.
Again, the news media doesn't call her out on that. That's the headache. Nor do, very few Republicans are going to call her out on it. We need not only a reliable, let's use that word. We need not only honest and reliable news media, but we also need politicians that are going to defend us and not back down only because she's a Hispanic woman and they don't want to look macho and racist.
What do you think that this Texas legislature session is going to get rid of variable rates? Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't know. I would hope that they would diversify. I would hope that they would encourage independent grids so that they would work to diversify and depend on reliable energy. But I'm not sure what when it comes to how they're going to charge it. We've got to do something about the cost, because to have a monopoly of energy in your community is not good. That's what we've got in San Antonio, and look what happened to us.
In many municipalities, they don't allow net zero or net metering or any kind of feedback into the system. I didn't know that. I didn't know that municipalities could opt out of taking power from solar panels at the home and other consumer type energy sources. as opposed to your AEPs and Magic Valley Electric. They, by law, are supposed to buy or take your energy if you have it. But solar panels are, by law, set to turn off when service turns off. So it really doesn't do any good to have
I know.
solar panels or wind that are going to be, and I'm talking about consumer solar panels, and if by law they're supposed to not power the grid, and I can understand why, because of safety. You don't want power being fed back into the grid and have a lineman get zapped from a solar.
But there's got to be some way that you can turn it off for the individual so that the individual can continue to have light or energy. But see,
well, there is. It almost doubles the price of a.
Again, what's the point then of having a solar panel if you're going to pay through the nose eventually? What we need again are reliable, affordable energy sources. And that does not include solar panels, who are not affordable. And it certainly doesn't include windmills, who are not reliable.
Well, I guess I don't understand why they are going to revamp everything or suggest more studies when studies have been done.
Oh yeah,
two past periods of grid failures, and are we going to get another study, or are we going to get action? What have you heard?
Well, that's, I mean, right now the lobbyists in Austin, for example, are scrambling like crazy, particularly the green liberal lobbyists, the ones that the attorneys who are ready to file lawsuits, for destruction of nature. Never mind that the windmill kills birds. This is going to be a real test of grassroots Texans, because we're looking at a situation where there should be transparency, ultimate transparency, in trying to understand what happened, how it went wrong, who did what wrong, and then come up with a solution. Not just to find out what went wrong, but come up with a solution. The solution in my book is very simple. The solution is diversification of energy sources. However, we've got very strong lobbies against it. We've got an entire political party, the Democrats, who are against it. So how it gets played, I don't know. I really wish I could say we're going to win this one because of the terrible tragedy that we just went through, but I'm not sure. I think that I'm afraid that it's going to be played for a lot of smoke and mirrors, and nothing will get done.
I, for one, I'm glad that the chair is gone and the vice chair is gone. You spoke about greenies. I believe that they were greenies. There's plenty of pictures of her powering up her EV, her electric vehicle. The vice chair from Germany. We know Germany's agenda and green.
Right.
So those two probably did a lot to push the green agenda in Texas. Fred says, unpopular opinion, if you allowed price gouging, there wouldn't have been a problem with our grid. I'm not sure what you mean, Fred. Variable rates, I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or not, but that would be a free market type thing where supply and demand has pretty much, or rather that week it's shot prices up to $1,200 a kilowatt. So that's why some people owe $17,000, $20,000 of their electric bill. So I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or not, Fred. You'd have to talk to me and convince me. And he goes on to say, if you can't have an autonomous system in McAllen, well, with winter Texan drivers, with Mexican drivers, with Valley drivers, it's crazy traffic out there right now. I stay away from Northwest McAllen just because of the traffic. It's really, really bad. So yeah, Fred, you're right. In some cities or some situations,
They have good enchiladas.
hey, the Valley has better tacos than San Antonio. That's an ongoing battle, and I forget who started that, but there's an ongoing battle about that. Talk Show Central RGV style says, great show. I love the information. Absolutely. But that brings us up to a wrap. George, any last thoughts? The last book that I read was from 2019 that you wrote. Have you written anything since then?
I am a victim of the cancel culture. I have had believe it or not, I've had a difficult time in getting my second book published because I don't know if you've noticed, I'm very conservative, and there were a couple of companies that flat set out that that they were cautious about publishing it and printing it because it was it would have caused a controversy. Now, I thought that's what books were supposed to do, is create controversy, create discussion. I mean, I remember reading about the first time that Lady Chatterley's daughter was written, a romantic novel, and it caused a lot of controversy. I'm not sure that mine will cause that, but we shall see.
Well, I thank you for your time, George. It was a pleasure having you on tonight, and you're expressing your opinion. I hope everybody else did so too. And
anybody who's interested can go to my blogs, my Facebook pages. George Rodriguez El Conservador. I would encourage you to follow me on those. Twitter, Facebook, we, all of them.
All right. Thank you much, and we'll call it a night. Thank you, George.